to Similarly Different. Hey guys, welcome to Similarly Different. On today's episode, I have a guest with me, and she has been on your TV screen. You may have seen her if you're a Netflix lover or if you like seeing things like The Ultimatum. But we have so much to talk to her about, and I want to know, besides The Ultimatum, everything that she encompasses. And I figured, let's get her on the show. So we have the one, the only Mariah here. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've seen your episodes and I'm so excited to be here. All the people that I've admired and loved, I'm obsessed with what you do.
It's so funny because the way we actually came to even get to know each other was like serendipitous, I would say, because it wasn't like a team reached out or anything like that. I have no idea how you came across my stuff, but out of nowhere, she came across my stuff. And the way the world works, it's like, you know, you go and you buy a red car, and out of nowhere, you start seeing the red car everywhere. And with her, she started following me, and I was like, I think I've seen this girl before. I followed her back, and 2-3 days later, I saw her at an event where I had never seen her at events before.
Yeah. I remember I had gone to Step Up was the reason as to how I found you.
That's right.
I went to a brunch, and then shortly after had gone to the schools, and then I saw they were reposting everyone who was going to schools and doing the mentorship. And so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I love anyone who's a part of this program. And I feel like that's really aligned with where I'm at in my heart. So immediately saw your content, saw what you were doing, and then I followed. And then, I saw you at an event shortly after. I was like, wait, I think that's Yanina. I need to say hi. So I'm so glad that we ran into each other so quickly too after that.
Yeah, it's just like it all aligned. So, and you know, for those that you guys have seen her maybe on TV, she obviously was on a reality show, The Ultimatum. So for those that don't know you, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and then life before and after the show.
Yeah. Okay. So I was on a reality TV dating show called The Ultimatum. And for those who don't know, essentially the premise is one partner wants to get engaged, one doesn't. And you are with other couples in that stage, whether they've been together for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however long. It's just an experience to go through different kind of almost like couples retreat-ish type of experiences to figure out what you do, don't like. And I went on that show in hopes of getting clarity in my own relationship, my past relationship. But prior to that, I was working in social media marketing for a clean beauty company based out of Santa Monica. So I have been, I feel like, in the LA area a lot, and that's a lot of where the couples too have resided, some in Arizona. But after the show, I still have been in marketing, but now I've kind of ventured into some influencer marketing with more so an emphasis on social media management.
And how are you liking that?
I love it. I personally, I had gone to FITM for merchandising and product development. And so it was either going that route, or when I realized marketing was something I was really interested in, trend forecasting and things like that. So I did a deep dive of the beauty company, and I knew I wanted to be in the beauty space as well. So kind of getting my feet wet with the corporate side of marketing and then kind of veering off and doing my own thing independently. So it's been really fun, and so much changes in social media. So it's like it's always refreshed. Honestly, every day, almost every week.
I think something that you mentioned real quick is that you said refreshed. And I would have never thought that you went to FITM and all these things and you were in marketing before, during, and after, because I actually would have thought you took psychology or something. I feel like when I see your content, you're always very much speaking about mental health and talking about it and being very vulnerable in a very authentic way about your own process and where you are. So where did that journey start for you?
Honestly and truly, I think it more so started coming out of high school. I was slightly interested in those fields. As a backstory, I think this is maybe where it stemmed from, but I was a part of the International Baccalaureate program. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's kind of like AP, but more common for like military brats. Not that I was a military brat, but it's just like an international program. And one of the courses, which was my absolute favorite course, was Theory of Knowledge. And so you kind of have just more of this well-rounded course or curriculum to kind of think outside of the box, and just like philosophy, different like just lots of literature, lots of different texts that you wouldn't typically get in a high school. So I think I was really fascinated by all these other perspectives that you wouldn't usually get in high school courses. So that eventually fed into like, as I was leaving into college, there wasn't any courses like that, but I also was beginning to do my own self-healing journey. And I was like, you know what, like, let me look into like self-help podcasts, anyone that I kind of look up to, like Meghan Markle, these types of people that I think, who would I want to swap places with, or who could I really like feed my mind and help give me a different path, because I didn't necessarily have that kind of influence in my life. So being that for me.
Would you say that there was a moment in your teen years that catapulted your interest in mental health?
Yeah, I think unknowingly, it was around maybe 14, I would say, I know we're going to dive into it, but more so it stemmed from my childhood and with my mom and not having her. So then I knew I was going through different periods of, at the time I didn't know the term or name, but depression, anxiety, feeling like abandonment issues, these sorts of things. And at the time, I remember 13, I had gone to a Christian camp. And I was like, okay, God can be a resource for me. And then additionally, looking into other resources like podcasts, my friends, of course, I feel like I had lots of resources to help me kind of wrap my head around mental health. Not that it was really spoken in my family, though. So I think it was a lot of outside external influences or just pursuing it more than what it was like given to me.
And you mentioned your relationship with your mom, and you mentioned off camera, obviously, that you didn't really grow up with your mom. So what about your mom's relationship and the fact that you didn't grow up with her, did you see it affected your teen years and maybe even your young womanhood, adulthood?
Okay, so I remember I was separated from my mom around 9 years old, and from 9, I want to say until 12, I was not quite sure of like what that dynamic was going to look like any longer, because I was supposed to see her like every year, but that didn't really happen. So come my preteens, going into my teens and high school, that's when it hit me, I think, the hardest of like, I really don't have my mom anymore. And I had a stepmom. I will say that, yes, I did have a stepmom, but you know, nothing can really replace that inseparable bond that you have with your maternal mom. So it was a really big challenge for me to navigate lots of different, even like puberty and just questions I had with like creating friends with girls and different dynamics. So I had lots of questions, and I would definitely say middle school, end of middle school into high school hit me the hardest of like, okay, now I just have to figure it out of leaning on my friends' moms possibly, if not just creating a safe girlhood community, which I did. I found like the best girls in high school. So I'm really grateful for that.
And now growing up without a mother, I know that a lot of the times it can affect your identity, your resilience. For me, I actually had the opposite. I didn't grow up with my mom until I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So for me, I didn't have that really strong bond that, for example, my younger sister has with my mom. And I did go towards more of my friends throughout high school, and I had a lot of girlfriends, and I still remember to this day. And you know, I think I can also say from my experience, I don't regret the way things folded, because I think it's all a part of our journey. So even with Step Up, like I feel like we see so many girls from so many different walks of life, and it's so refreshing, because I wish I had that growing up. And I did have church and women in church, which I think helped me. But I think where it really hit me, the relationship with my mom and needing to fix it for my part, and I don't know what your experience was in your adulthood, was in my 20s. And my 20s are such a weird time in a woman's life. And it's specifically the beginning of my 20s. I just wasn't able to be like, well, where do I lean on? Who do I go to? And not having that closeness or trust with my mom. So with you, how did you deal with that in your 20s?
Yeah, I think I want to preface that my first long-term relationship, I was 18 to 21, 22. So that experience was really challenging. And when I finally got out of that relationship and I was in a period of being alone, very short period, it was only 6 months, but in that span of time, I was like, I think I need to address my mother wound. Like I didn't really identify that it was something that needed to be addressed. It was just there. It was just like, okay, I have to navigate without my mom, and there's no correlation to how I'm living my life with these other partners or so forth. And so it wasn't until 22 for me when I woke up literally one morning, I was like, okay, I think this needs to be addressed more like wholeheartedly focused rather than loosely turning to God. I mean, yes, turning to God for sure for questions and answers, but also I just didn't understand how deeply rooted it was. So it was 22 where I was more so, that was my focus rather than just an overarching theme of mental health.
I think a lot of the times, a lot of people could deal with, I know I've heard it from a few friends, the feeling of guilt of associating like, oh, that's the root. Because, you know, I also want to say our parents are doing life for the first time, right? So growing up, we can be like, oh, my mom didn't do this, my mom didn't do that. Why did they choose this decision? Why did they choose that decision? And we get angry, we get sad, and we don't understand it. And I think now, being in my 30s, I'm like, when I talk to my mom or when I deal with my mom, and even if it's not the happiest thing and I get frustrated in that moment, I have a moment to sit back and say, she's doing life for the first time. She's doing life for the first time. And unfortunately, I think being the daughters or son of parents that have been immigrants, have dealt with a lot of pain, have dealt with a lot of suffering, we kind of grow up with this awareness, and it's what I hear that you have within yourself at a very young age and in different moments of your life, of just the light bulb being like, that's what it is, and I need to go to that. And where do you think that came from for you?
That's a great question. I think, well, actually, I think it more so stemmed from the abandonment wound that I have. And there wasn't really that association with my dad so much. Like there, even though there was that, it didn't feel as strong of a pull in that way. So yeah, I think I recognized in my past relationships, especially my first one, absolutely was codependent, lots of anxiety. I was very emotional. My nervous system was never regulated. There were so many things. I mean, I was 18 to 22 and lots to learn. Obviously, it was my first real relationship, and also even as going as far as involving sex. Like I hadn't had sex yet. So when you mix in like lust with like all these other problems, it's like a hodgepodge of just chaos. And so
it's confusion.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have as great of a resource back home, or even like my girlfriends at that time. We're all going to college. Like the group that we had, everyone kind of disbanded and we're doing our own thing all over the world. So I didn't have as many people to call. I'm sure I could have, but it's just when you're going through life and you feel shame or embarrassed, or it's like, oh, I don't really want to talk about this. So there was a lot of time where I was isolated, and just recognized that probably more than likely I should address the mother wound as far as abandonment, and just even the first instances of love. Like that's your very first bond is with your mom. And so yeah, it took me some time to recognize that was kind of the core. Not that I don't want to make it seem as though it's like the only thing from where it came from in my childhood. I recognize it. And to your point of how you're like, when you look at your mom or your dad now, you see them, this is their first time living life, like kids raising kids, the whole thing. And I felt the exact same way about my mom, even at the age of 8. I just saw her and I was like, she seems like an 8-year-old as well. Like at the time she could have been 20, but still I just know that she didn't have a good parental system. And so it just trickles. And I don't know exactly how that was instilled in me to see people in that way, but to go even a little further, my upbringing with my mom, we were homeless. So being at homeless shelters, and I saw so much brokenness, like addiction, alcoholism, domestic violence. And I was like, these are all broken people who don't have good resources or good forms of love, or like just support in their life. And the effects of that, it can be detrimental, and people can go so far left, or some people obviously can make it through out of that. So I saw my mom in that way. And so all the time that I had felt like, oh, this is challenging, or the stem of this is because of her, or whatever the case may be, in reality, it's like, I don't blame her. I have so much empathy for her. And I just try to, it is what it is. Like, even if I don't acknowledge like she's the reason why or blame her, it just is what it is. And I have to acknowledge like all the generational trauma. It's like she had it as well. It's passed into me. And how can I kind of break that cycle and do what I can to navigate through those really tough moments?
And I do want to say, if anybody is watching this or listening to this, a lot of the times it takes time for us to even come to this understanding. It's so interesting that the age of 8 for you was so pinnacle, because that was my age. And I remember specifically a therapist telling me, you're the adult in the family. And I was like, I'm 8.
I know.
I had just came from Venezuela, so I went from living like genuinely a beautiful childhood to then like, you're an adult and you have to realize. And I saw the awareness, the same thing that you said of, and I've actually never in my life in 34 years have heard somebody say, 1, at 8, and 2, that they were like, I felt sadness for my mom. And I think growing up, I don't know the relationship that you had with your mom, even through the silence and the distance, but I remember my mom at times would be like, you're ashamed of me, you're sad, because we also went through a lot of financial issues where there was times that we were efficiency to efficiency. And I remember that we would get into such big arguments of, I'm not ashamed of you, I'm not ashamed of you. But the reality is, at that age, you don't know how to identify the feeling.
Exactly. Like being able to articulate what you're actually feeling. And you're so young, you just kind of dismiss things. And when you get older, like naming things was one thing for me. It's like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. And I remember even a few years ago, my mom mentioned it again. Are you ashamed of me? And I said, Mom, I've never been ashamed of you. I just don't like how you react to things because it hurts me. And I think that understanding that, you know, our older parents don't have of emotions, of processing and all that stuff can be really frustrating for us, that for some reason we have the awareness. And it's still something that I'm like, but why did I get this awareness and not my parent? But, you know, it's our journey and everything. And did you ever look forward to or try to fix a relationship with her before the passing?
So when I was 8 years old, I moved over to my dad in California, and I pretty much stayed there all throughout high school, so it was very much a stable home. But with my mom, technically by the court order, she was supposed to come and visit me. However, she didn't have her GED. She didn't really have a job. At that time, when I moved, we were living in Salvation Army, so it's like all the resources were kind of stacked against, like the odds were stacked against her of like being able to come and visit me. And I think I was so optimistic and hopeful, and I'm thinking like, well, these are things for adults to figure out. Like I'm just, the court is saying that I should be here, so this is kind of where I'll be, and my mom's gonna come and visit. And that's what I meant by from 9 to 12. I was just like, I don't think she's coming. And like all the things that were told to me, and like the hopefulness turned into hopelessness. And at that point I was angry, and I couldn't, and ultimately I realized that anger's not really an emotion. It's actually just sadness. It's disguised as sadness. So I didn't realize I was sad, but I was just so angry and I was rebelling. And on occasions, like basically birthday cards stopped coming in, letters and calls. And so I was like, you know what, I'm getting my hopes up and I'm just over it. So I set a boundary of, I'm not going to pursue a relationship with her. And if she wants to see me, then that'll be the case. But when I was about to graduate, I remember my dad was like, do you want me to like look into this, hire a private investigator? We can locate her and she can come to your graduation. I was like, you know what? No, like I don't want to. And she's made it a point that she doesn't want to be in my life. And I didn't realize obviously the state that she was in, where she just simply couldn't make the means to come and visit. And so when I went off to college, that's when, from college up until I would say this past year, I was just so deeply invested in my relationships, my romantic relationships, that nothing mattered. And it was definitely like a trauma response, because I was seeking love and validation and just a sense of safety and stability. And obviously when you're going into relationships seeking those things, you're not going to get it, because it needs to be within yourself first. But so it only got to a point this past summer, April 2024, I went to Guam, the motherland where my mom was born. And I was like, okay, one, because my grandparents were on the island and they had just gotten remarried and they're getting close to dying. So I was like, you know what, like, let me make that my priority. And I didn't know where she was, even though it was on the back of my mind. Like, I want to find my mom and see if I can help her, because I know from what I've heard from bits and pieces from family, she's still on the streets and she's still looking for me, like mental health wise. She thought that she had lost me. So, but when I went to Guam, I connected with family, and my uncle was like, yeah, the next time I see you, we'll be in Vegas, because that's where he thinks she is, and he lives in Vegas. We'll take the time and just like drive around, and we'll see if we can find her, because she tends to pop up at the places he thinks. So I was like, okay, great. But then at that time I had gotten laid off from my job, and I was like, oh, it's not a good time financially, so I'll circle back with you. And he's like, no worries, like do your thing. And I think 3 months later is when she passed. I was like, I got so close, and I was so frustrated at the time, where I was like, I ate up all of the opportunities I could have to go see her. And it's just like the guilt you feel, and I'm learning to release that at this point. It's been almost a year since she passed, but you just never know how much time you have. And I think the pursuit was always in my heart to find her and potentially get her into a involuntary mental health ward or psych ward or something like that, to help her and get clean and have stability and potentially like take her in possibly. I think that too, like the responsibility of like, okay, if I do find my mom, am I okay and prepared to take that relationship on? And so, or financially. And
you also didn't know what you were going to walk into, you know. Next thing you know, it's like, what emotional outburst was she going to have? As you mentioned, you know, she could be using different things, which could create so many different things that are unknown and be undiagnosed at the moment. So I don't know. I always think about friends of mine who have been in your position, and in that time, what were some mental health things that you noticed now that you were putting yourself through, in the sense of, was it panic attacks? Was it anxiety attacks? Was it depressive episodes? I know for me, because I had to be an adult growing up very quickly, my mom has actually said it before, like, she has seen me cry a handful of times. To my friends, I am a crier. I am Niagara Falls. I am so emotional and all that stuff. But my mom hasn't seen me cry often because I'm always making sure that her and my sister are okay.
Yeah.
So how was it for you?
I would say I didn't even cry, like exactly how you would describe it, of just putting on this face or facade in front of most people, public facing. But even with my closest friends, even though they are safe people and I love them so much, something in me couldn't cry. So I would often be bawling alone by myself, or I would be crying in my relationships to my romantic partner. And so those were really the instances where I felt the most emotional, and whether it be like I'm having an epiphany or I'm having just like a really terrible episode. And it just, it varied. But I, as far as the mental health things that I had gone through, absolutely was anxiety, chronic stress, depression, restlessness, as far as like not sleeping well. So there was lots of things. And even now I'm kind of having to unpack, and so many things of unpacking and unlearning chronic stress, and just like having so much levels of cortisol in your body is not good. And the effects even thereafter, even if you're on a trajectory of being better or healing to an extent, it's like there's still going to be some effects in your body that have metabolized. So I'm just like,
what are 3 things that you would say that have helped you the most
in navigating? I would say, well, number 1 absolutely would be nature. I love being in sunshine. It helps my nervous system a lot. Any warmth, which I've learned is kind of a natural way to almost create comfort in a hug. So either hot baths, hot showers, being in the sun and nature, definitely having girlfriends that I can talk to. Not that I would cry in front of them, but definitely to vent and confide.
Or even talk about something else than what's running in your brain. I feel sometimes it's like, if you're able to be around someone that makes you laugh, then you forget about it for a little bit.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and often that would be the case. I feel like I wouldn't go super, super, super deep only up until this, I would say this past year and a half did I really kind of take the mask off with some of my friends that were close to me. And then I would say as much as journaling is great, it doesn't really work for me. I'm like never consistent about it. So I think video vlogs, or like, you know, phone diaries, that works just where I'm talking to camera and no one will ever see it. But that really helps me. So yeah.
I love that. I've always wanted to do video diaries, just turn on my photo booth and record. And I like journaling because I feel like I used to write a lot growing up in my computer because my mom wouldn't see my documents. So she would think I was just writing an essay for school, and really I was like saying everything I felt.
Super studious. Yeah, she had never known.
And then I ended up starting to write a lot. But nowadays I notice like my hands get really tired.
I know. Me too. They kind of cramp. I'm like, this might be my phone. That's how.
Right. So I agree with that. But I do feel that for me, when I write in a journal, the thought, it's like me releasing the words from my mind onto a paper, and then they just release a little bit more.
And something I learned as well, just like a little tip, is that if you're writing in blue, it actually also helps just I think mental wise, your brain versus black or any other color, blue is like more calming. So it's just like helping channel all the words and thoughts, but also a calming kind of color.
I love that. Now, do you still do therapy, or did you do always just regular therapy, or did you try different ones?
So when I saw this question, I was like, I do want to talk about this because I don't think it's widely spoken about, but in full transparency, I was living paycheck to paycheck for a while. And so carving out time for therapy, like more expensive forms of therapy, could be EMDR therapy or just like more extensive rather than just talk therapy, was just something out of my budget. So for the time I had done talk therapy, like various different therapists of all different backgrounds, trying to see if it would work, but it really just didn't work for me. And I don't know if you can relate, but I'm really good at compartmentalizing and have so much self-awareness. And I'm like, okay, this happened and this, and I have forgiveness for them, and I have empathy and compassion and all these different things. So it really didn't help me because a lot of my trauma is more so in my body. And so that would be somatic therapy or potentially EMDR therapy to get into different memories. But as far as sustaining those types of therapies, I hadn't done that. And with talk therapy, not that I don't want to like bash talk therapy. I think it's really helpful to do, but I've just learned over time, whether it was an individual or couples therapy, that it just wasn't for me. And prior to even investing in therapy, I was looking for resources that were kind of free. So literally Spotify podcasts, or again, like investing in a $10 book, a self-help book that is bestseller or something like that. So I leaned heavily on resources that were cost efficient, but still gave me enough to like work with at least until I could finally, towards the past, I want to say like 2-3 years, where I've looked into talk therapy. And my next step would definitely, I'm curious to know like how EMDR therapy could help me, or even somatic therapy possibly.
So this is so interesting that you're in this journey, because I tried EMDR therapy and flopped.
Really?
Like, it was so bad.
Yeah.
I tried it last Friday, this past Friday, like it's Monday, so Friday. And I told my friend, I was like, am I broken? Because I'm so used to talk therapy, and I've done it on and off since I was 13 years old. And while it's a trial and error, if you get the right person that pushes you, the right person that walks you through, the right person that helps you open up memories. And I've been, thankfully, I've had great women in my life. And because I grew up in church, it was free. But as I got an adult, I was like, this is expensive. And it went from a few years ago being one session of 30 minutes for $150 to that same therapist now charges $250. If you're telling me that's once a week, we're putting $1,000 into that. And it was until recently that I found out that I believe it's called Grow. An app or a website. I will make sure to add it to this episode in the details. It's not BetterHelp, it's not Talkspace. It's one, I want to say it's called Grow. They take insurance. They take insurance, which none of them do. And I was like, okay, I already pay $300 plus for insurance, or even if you don't, if you have Medicare, whatever, a lower cost, they take all like 90% of insurances, which I thought it was so great, because most therapists, one, don't take insurance, or if they're on a system like Talkspace or BetterHelp, those systems also don't take insurance. So it's really hard to be able to get affordable insurance and affordable help with people that are going through such traumatic things, which then in return makes it where they just live with it, and then it's an ongoing generational cycle. So I have a friend who does tapping, EFT and EMDR. So she told me, I really want to do a tapping session with you because I was going through some stuff and I really wanted to let it go. She's like, I'm going to write down a script for you. That's how I do it. And then we go and start tapping. We did a tapping session. Didn't really feel anything, but I felt really calm afterwards. And I was like, maybe that's just how it works. She was like, okay, we're going to take it up a notch, but you really have to go through a journey with me. Girl, I don't know what I was walking myself into. I was really into it though, because I've heard from different people, even Courtney has mentioned like EMDR, but I know that there's different forms of EMDR. We started talking in this Zoom call, and she's like, okay, close your eyes. And I was like, okay. She's like, okay. So we're walking through a library. And before that, she had said, babe, you're just one to compartmentalize a lot. And I've never had a client like you. And I'm like, does that mean I'm broken? She's like, no. It means you're really smart. And you're so smart that you've been able to be so aware of not only your emotions, but everybody else's emotions. And you're able to not make excuses for them, but understand the pain and reason why they do certain things. And most people don't have this awareness. So she's like, okay, close your eyes. And she starts walking me through it. She's like, okay, imagine this. Do you see it? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, I see it. She's like, okay, now do you see this? Then she says like a word like, do you find it annoying? And I open my eyes and I'm like, I never said I felt annoyed. And she's like, oh my God. So I was like, did I fail?
She's like, tap back in.
Right. She's like, just close your eyes. And I'm like, I don't think I'm good at this. So I'm going to try it again, because she realized that she's like, I need you to trust me, and you're not trusting me yet. Because you're so aware of what you feel, where you feel it, and where you put it. She's like, you're just ready to talk about it. And she's like, but EMDR and tapping and EFT is not about that. She's like, you have to truly let go so that your brain can go into those memories and those feelings and go into and bring it to the present. And my first thing was, but I already felt it. I had 3 days of crying. And she's like, so you compartmentalized it. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'll be back. I'll be back next week.
So I would love to know your experience when you tap into that form of therapy to see how it is for you, because I don't want to give up on it. I do believe that there is greatness from it. I've heard like crazy stories about people that have been able to do healing from it. And like you said, it's more of an internal like breakage that you go through. But I mean, if anybody has gone through any of this type of therapy, I would love to know, and like your recommendations on it. But I love that you're going into that. But it is the biggest problem for me is that all of those are so detailed form of therapy that they are really expensive. And that makes me sad.
I know. And also, I think something that is overlooked is how most people internalize their trauma in their body. Like, I don't think a lot of people understand. Again, talk therapy is fantastic, and I think it helps in certain journeys, but I would say a lot of people feel the pain, like when you're chronic ailments or things like that. Maybe it's pertaining to trauma, could be. And I think a lot more awareness should be spread on that or other forms, and even it being accessible. So grow, I definitely will be looking into that to see.
Yeah, and my friend recently did liver cleanse, and I actually was at the same time that she was doing a liver cleanse was at a retreat, and we did this whole day of Chinese medicine method.
Wow.
And I learned that the liver, I was telling her, I was like, how's the cleanse doing? And she's like, oh, good, but I just feel a lot of stagnation and, you know, I don't know, I just feel weird about what's going. And she's also a life coach, so she's like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I asked the doctor, what emotions does the liver hold? And she said the liver holds anger. And I told her, and I said, ask yourself in a private, are you angry? And if you're angry, and she, a few days later, she was like, oh my God, it was the anger. She's like, I have so much energy. I'm swinging through this whole liver cleanse, and I feel more energized than ever. And she's like, I really truly think I wasn't being honest with myself, and I was holding on to so much anger, and I never knew if I associated the emotion, I could go and figure out where did it come from and really process it through. So it's crazy, because I also believe that a lot of autoimmune diseases come from that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I tell that to my family members, you know, I'm like, I'm not trying to be this hippie energetic person of being like, you need to love the world and you'll be healthy. But truly, we hold on so much stagnation and tension in our bodies from whatever we haven't processed. Now, where do you feel like you are now in your life?
In my life, I definitely would say, I appreciate you saying just being honest with yourself. I think for a long time I wasn't honest with myself, and I would find any reason to justify or make sense of like, well, it's fine. And this is just like a sense of familiarity with all of those different experiences and feelings, and thinking that they weren't necessarily anything to be addressed. You know, I don't know. And so now I think I'm just a lot more honest with myself. And I will say, now that I'm dating my new partner, something he's instilled in me would be just, it's so important to be your most authentic self. And that is when obviously you attract the right people, they're on the same wavelength, same journey. And I think now, even just cycling back to the ultimatum, looking back at that experience, it's like, I don't even know that version of me. And I know that we grow every year or every 6 months. And I'm like, okay, how can I continue to be on this path of using my voice, still being on my journey of healing? And it's incredibly challenging. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, I'm just on this upward trajectory. It's not like that at all. And so, I think I strive to be in spaces where I'm appreciated, I am supported, and that other people are either pursuing that similar journey. If not, there's something to learn from them. And I think, just kind of, I almost also feel like in a rebellious era where before I was so small and I just wouldn't kind of step out of my comfort zone, and I'm just not rebellious, but just more open-minded and curious to explore and kind of trial by fire, because before I'd be too scared to do anything. Like, I'd be really comfortable in my ways, and I think I'm challenging that so that I can continue to grow and just really take advantage of this back half of my 20s. And if I'm at this point, I'm like, well, what can I achieve in 5 years? So I think I'm just really happy and proud of myself.
I think you finally have gained your own voice, and you're standing strong with it. And that's something beautiful to see, because I'm going into something that I saw the other day on social media about that you posted. Again, another serendipitous part, because I have had an organization dream my whole life. And I don't know the name of it, but I know the concept of it. And it's basically because I lived efficiency to efficiency, and I've never owned a house or lived in a house besides when I was in Venezuela. I wanted to create something that literally looked like a mansion. And I want to. I want to create something that literally looks like a humongous mansion. I don't want it to look like a center, or I don't want it to look sterile. I don't want it to look like a hospital. I don't want it to look like a rehab facility. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be luxurious. And I want it to be a place, I don't know if it's like where they can get treatment in house per se, but for a place that, a lot of the times in foster care at 18, you're put on the road. So you end up homeless. And while I didn't go through foster care, I do believe that my mom didn't have sometimes enough resources to be able to get back on her feet when she left my stepdad that unfortunately was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So she did what she could, but she was always living like paycheck to paycheck, or even left very much survival. So I would love to create a place like a mansion where it can teach you how to get a job. It can, you know, teach you how to, you know, get beautified, fashion, everything, how to speak better, how to get resources, but in a place where you actually feel like your utmost best self rather than just a sterile place. Yeah. And I've always said, I was like, I want to just create, I want it to be called the mansion, and it, you know, just be able to elevate people. And I always say when I do my beauty tutorials or my fashion videos, and I'm like, of course I would love to go to like the Louis Vuitton Paris fashion show, but my greatest happiness is being able to find and help a girl next door like myself feel her best self, because I didn't have all these resources. I didn't have the money I have now. I didn't have any of that stuff growing up. But when people see me today, they have no idea of what I went through. They have no idea that I went through pain or went through, you know, very low moments with my mom trying to survive and all these things. Granted, we never missed a meal, and I'm so grateful for that. But there was a lot of things that I know that girls that if they went through things like me or even worse, don't believe in themselves when it times comes to be 18 years old or 16 or 25, and they never grow out of that, and they think that that's the most they can do, that they think that that's just what life is. And for me, I don't know where it came from, but I was like, no, I want more. No, I deserve more. No, I want to go for more. I want to prove people wrong. I want to prove myself wrong. I want to prove the stereotype wrong, you know, the status quo, the community I grew up in, that like, you know, the government says that we're going to only make this much because you came from this community. No, I want to make double, triple it, you know, and I want to do the same thing for other people. And I saw the other day on your social media that you were talking about how you want to create an organization or a nonprofit one day. And I was laying in bed seeing it, and I was like, oh my God, why are me and Mariah like two different people that were split apart at some point in life? And we have so many of the similar ideas. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about that from your standpoint and what you're hoping and you will do one day.
It's so interesting because I'm realizing, thinking back on our relationship and how we met, and one, obviously I didn't meet you at that brunch at Step Up. Like, we didn't talk. Then I saw you at the event. And then I was at your dinner, Generaciones. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I really want to get to know Yanina. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of like pull there. I don't know, her spirit feels very similar. So to hear that you're interested in creating your own organization, and it sounds exactly kind of where I'm coming from as well. I don't exactly have a name. I think what I call it at this point is just like a healing house, for the sake of just like when I express what I'm interested in or what I'm passionate about. And as far as what the facility would look like, same thing. I don't want it to be sterile, because having been through those different homeless shelters, and I was at a women's shelter and I saw kind of how they ran and operated their facility, but I'm grateful for that facility, but I think there's so much more opportunity to create such a more warm, welcoming space, and it not feel like we're just kind of like another person in the system that is going to eventually kind of, who knows where their next steps are going to be. But they had classes to finish out your GED. They had people who would provide like PR or like products for Mother's Day, and just kind of give back to the community, create a sense of normalcy to an extent. But I definitely think there's so many things I want to do, because a part of it, I understand mind, body, soul connection is really important. So in encompassing all three of those, so whether there's like a meditative center, whether there's a movement, maybe it doesn't need to be yoga, but it could be Pilates or some sort of movement to get your body, because I know even processing trauma to move through your body is really important, or breath work can help people kind of tap in without talk therapy or different forms of just really healing. So yeah, I think I was also considering, do I want it to be an overnight housing facility or do I not? And if I did, then what would that look like? Because like, for safety reasons, is it going to be co-ed? Is it going to be just children? Is it going to be just women and children? It's just like, there's lots of things to consider, but I think over time it's going to be more of this holistic experience of like meals and nutrition and education, plus finishing out their school if they haven't finished that as a single mom or single dads. And I think also having different, I think what you said of more like fashion and graphic design, like being more open-minded to careers that they could launch themselves into.
Creative careers.
Yeah, creative careers. And I think I envision all of these ideas. It's like, okay, it needs to be a massive thing or like a mansion. It's like, where are we going to house this or where are we going to house this facility? So it could be spread out. Yeah, it's just like, what are we going to do? I don't know.
I just know that I've always said I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to end up being. I know that my purpose is bigger than what I'm currently doing, but it's a stepping stone to get to my final purpose. And I know that my final purpose has something to do with that. So I just think as long as we move with intention, we voice it that we want it so that it can come to us and the right person can, like, you know, whether it's step up or something else, we're still doing a part and a little piece of it, creating of what we ultimately want to do. But I think you're on the right track. I love that you found your voice. I love that you're strong with it. I love how vulnerable you are on social media about your process, no matter how gritty at times it is, because it's not cute. It's not cute when you are honest with yourself. It's not cute when you are genuine about what season you're in. But if you flow through it, you grow through it, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable and just sharing your story and being here. And for those that don't know you or still want to follow you, you know, and they did know you but now know you even better, where can they find you?
You can find me on most social platforms, definitely Instagram, TikTok. People do want vlogs from YouTube. We're going to get into that. But my handle is all the same. It's Remnants of Mariah. And yeah, definitely, I have Healing is Hard as a project of mine even, which you were so inspirational because even hearing that you had a podcast, I was like, wow, that's beautiful. And then to hear that you also want a facility, I just feel like we're the same people in different fonts, kind of.
We're similarly different.
Literally. I love it. And it's been such a beautiful experience to even talk through these things. I haven't deep dived in this way, honestly. I don't know for what reason, but now obviously I have divine timing. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and talking to you it's allowed me to get closer to you as well and better understand your story. So I look forward to what's to come.
Yay. Well, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some gems for it. I hope you got some notes to be able to just take that step and not be, you know, used to whatever it is that is your normalcy right now, and to just strive to be better, to own your voice, and to just rediscover yourself as many times as you need to. So that's all for today's episode. Until next time. Bye.